Hello, boys and girls. It's your pal Jeff here, back in the spin zone. Finally, it's been a couple of weeks since I've made one of these. I've got 10 albums to show, representing my listening over that time span. So this is probably not going to be one of my shorter videos, as fast as I try to talk. So sit back, relax. If you need to pause before I get going to get a beverage or maybe a sandwich or something, be a good time. But after that, there's something non-comic related that I have to show, but I will demarcate it very clearly for those of you who are only interested in records. I understand, it's no problem. And probably an announcement after that. So this isn't going to be one of my shorter videos. So, let's get started. First album. The Unplugged Nirvana album gets a lot of the spotlight and the credit and the rave reviews in MTV's Unplugged series when they released albums of the shows. But for my money, Alice in Chains Unplugged is every bit as good as that Nirvana. Perhaps not as intense on certain songs, but boy, from front to back, this album is just killer. And I do want to get that Nirvana Unplugged someday, somewhere down the road, but I really like this one actually more right now. And here's the back. It's a double album, and it's just kind of serves almost as a greatest hits for Alice in Chains 2. You've got Down in a Hole, No Excuses, what else? Heaven Beside You, Got Me Wrong, among others. So, in the realm of MTV's Unplugged albums, this one stands tall for me, even though the Nirvana one is clearly more popular among people in the VC. But I gotta speak up for these guys too, because I like them. Probably another theme, if there was a theme to this week's Spin Zone. The last couple of these that I've done have been focused on like deck clearing, which, meaning that I'm listening to older purchases and acquisitions, things that kind of built up in my crate, and I was trying to clear a lot of that stuff out. This time, not so much. A lot of this is going to be VCLT based. In fact, I think there's only a couple in here that I actually bought. But Cloud 9 from the Temptations was prize winnings from Randy over at DeadWax66. He included this in his prize package. And boy, what a great album this is. Besides the title track, which was the hit off of this album, I mean, this whole record is like psychedelic funk, Andrew over at Tales from the Crate showed Psychedelic Shack, I think, in a recent video of his. And I want that album too, because after listening to this, I want more Temptations, especially from the late 60s, early 70s. I only had, before I got this, I only had the Temptations Anthology, which is a 3-record set of their greatest hits. And that's a great collection to have, don't get me wrong. But digging into their separate albums is pretty rewarding, especially with this one. So, really digging Cloud 9. I played this one a couple times. I'll probably play it a couple more before I file it away. I love these guys. And I don't have nearly enough Motown in my collection that I would like, so I'm going to try to rectify that in the future. But for now, this was a great pick from Randy to include in his prize package. So thank you for that, Randy. This is a great album. Then, after that, from Motown, we go to Reggae. This is Bob Marley and the Wailers, Confrontation. Here's the back. It's got all the lyrics to all the songs on it. on the Island label, of course. Chant Down Babylon, I know, was a hit. Buffalo Soldier, even though it sounds like the Banana Splits theme. You guys know the part I'm talking about if you've heard that song. Trench Town, Black Man Redemption. A lot of good stuff on here. Of course, released posthumously. I think 1983. Yes, 1983. So I'd picked up several Marley albums on estate sale earlier this year, and this was the last one that was hanging around. I think I still have a Jimmy Cliff in there that I still have to play, but this was the last of the Marleys. So all of them have been very enjoyable. Like I said, I didn't really dig beyond the hits when it comes to him, so it was pretty enlightening to listen to this and the other ones that I showed a couple of videos back that I played. But and I used this cover for Clark Vision's contest, when you had to show the album cover with a horse on it, which is kind of what inspired me to spin this, because, like I said, it had been sitting in my crate for a couple of months. So when I pulled this one to show for that contest entry, I kind of just kept it out and I just played it. So thanks for that, Bev. You inspired me to play a record. Even though it's not a metal record, it's reggae, but still. And then from reggae, we do another 180, and we go to the MC5. This was a gift from my one of my friends that I've known from a previous job of mine. His name's Gary, too. He gave me this album. It's a repress from the early 80s. You can see the back covers in kind of rough shape, but the record play is really nice. It's a red Elektra label. And this was another case where I knew Kick Out the Jams, you know, by the MC5, but never really went any further than that until I played this album, which is also called Kick Out the Jams. And it was a live performance. And man, what a just raw burst of garage rock. Unbelievable stuff. You can easily see how this influenced Iggy and the Stooges. You can kind of see where they came from listening to this album. I think they only released like one more after this one, didn't they? And then they split up or something like that. I don't know the entire story of the MC5. But I'm sure it's an interesting one. And this is a great album. Meant to be played at very loud levels. And this is the uncensored one where, for Kick Out the Jams, they don't blank out the motherfuckers. So, that's kind of cool. Motor City 5, Kick Out the Jams. This is a great, great album. Then, the only new album that I purchased here recently, probably in the last month or more, was something that I saw off of an ad on Facebook. I hadn't known it existed until then, but it's this album here. It's a double album called Blues by Rory Gallagher. In fact, I was going to tell, I just seen a picture on Instagram from 8 Vinyl Low, who got a vinyl haul, like a small collection that she bought, and there was a Rory Gallagher album in there, which I was very glad to see, because I was going to tell you all about Rory when I showed this album in this video, but I don't need to, so that's good. I'm glad you know about him. I'm always happy to spread the word about Rory Gallagher. This album is unreleased tracks, and I'm pretty sure it's all unreleased stuff. Although there is a version of A Million Miles Away, it's like the studio version. I'm not sure if that had been released in studio format before, but there's a version of it here if there is. And there's a, I'll just show you the gatefold here. And it actually folds out into a trifold. So you've got the two records on the end, and in the middle there's a booklet. But the only downside about this thing is I can't find a bag that fits this album, so I have to put this away without a bag, which kind of bugs me. nothing fits this thing because it's too thick with the trifold like that. So I just have to be careful with it, I guess. But if you've heard me talk at all about Rory, you know he's a fantastic Irish blues guitarist. He's right up there with all the big guys, you know, in the UK, in my opinion. The Stones actually asked him to join when they were looking for a guitarist before they got Mick Taylor. So, or no, not Mick Taylor, Ronnie Wood, sorry. And he turned him down. So that tells you something. But super talented, great blues musician. And this was relatively cheap, you know, for a double album. So just got released, I think, last week. So do yourself a favor, pick up a copy of this, and you will be very, very happy. The only problem I had with this, it's got nothing to do with the music, but it's got custom inners, which I'm not going to pull out of the sleeve here. But the record in there was so tight, I thought I was going to rip the damn thing getting out. And when I did, the record was covered with white specks, you know, like that confetti-looking stuff. So I had to brush these records off thoroughly before playing. And even then, I caught a few little bits that I missed. But, so be warned for that. That's kind of a common case with a lot of these new releases. They cram these records into these super tight sleeves, and they just stick to them because it's like that shiny paper, which is just loaded with static. So by the time I finally got it out, I could just hear the static just crackling through the air. But that aside, this is a great album, Rory Gallagher Blues, a brand new release. So check that one out. Then we go back to more contest winnings from Randy. This is Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, Sock It To Me. Here's the back. Fantastic album, again. It's nice to be able to delve into the Mitch Ryder catalog with these albums because, again, all I know is stuff like, you know, Devil with a Blue Dress and stuff like that. But they cover Walk On By on this album at the end of side 1, and it's really kind of it's almost kind of like a psychedelic, funky take on it. It's really interesting. But yeah, if you want energy and power and just excitement caught on wax, I don't think you can get much better than Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. So this album came out in '67, and it sounds just as fresh and as energetic and exciting today. So that says something, or at least it does to me. But I've been getting some killer VCLT and contest winnings here lately. So yeah, I had to play a lot of these records. I couldn't do more deck clearing with older stuff. Some of these things I just couldn't wait to listen to, like the Cloud 9. Played that right away. This one I played right away after it. You know, I just couldn't wait. So that's why. And these next three you saw already from Baraka P-Dub. I got a killer VCLT package from him, and it included this record right here, Triphop Classics by Triphop Masters. And I don't know if here's the set list. I can show it without glare, without having to take it out of the bag here. But I was already familiar with Teardrop by Massive Attack. That's the house theme song that my kids recognized. I was already familiar with Natural Blues by Moby. Those are great songs. But other ones that I found really enjoyable and intriguing was one by DJ Cam. Birds Also Sing for Anna Maria. This one right here. And actually the one that comes after that by Alex Gopher, it's called The Child. Those two really were really standout tracks for me, but this entire album is really, really good. DJ Shadow is on here. Brad, if you're watching, the The song on here is Building Steam with a Grain of Salt, which I'm sure you know. That was a good song too. You've got Tricky, Goldfrapp, Kid Loco, Morchiba, Nightmares on Wax. All good stuff. All very trip-hoppy, dark, sensual music, heavily electronic, of course. A lot of them use sound effects and snippets of dialogue from movies and stuff like that. So, very, very interesting, and a very, this is a great comp to serve as an introduction to trip hop. So, I don't know how new this is. I think this came out no, this came out this year. Okay, so there you go. Highly recommended if you are curious at all about the genre of trip hop. Then I got this one here, Skinshape. The album's called Philoxeny, and boy oh boy, what a fantastic album. It was one of those things where I never heard of him before. Obviously, I didn't know anything about this music, but as soon as I started listening to it, it was like meeting an old friend. So, where have you been all my life? So, here's the back. This is a British release. I think this is a UK pressing, because I looked these up on Discogs too. So, had a little bit of a tough time finding it, but I don't know if this is available in the US or not. I hope it is. If not, man, you do whatever you can to get this album. This is really great stuff. It's kind of laid back. It's kind of chill. Not so much in the realm of trip hop, but boy, what great emotional, deep feeling music. Yeah, can't say enough good things about this one. So, Paul, if you're watching this, great pick, dude. This was a fantastic album. I'm running out of adjectives to try to think of to describe it. So, the highest compliment I can give it is to just go out and buy it. Whatever you do, look for this album, Skinshape. The name of it is Philoxeny. Really, really great stuff. And I know he sent this to Hannah, and she raved about it too. And I think a couple other people made comments in that video about this album. But, yeah, can't say enough good stuff about that. Skinshape. And then, I listened to the Trip Hop one and the Skinshape back to back. The next day, I played Otis Rush, Morning in the Morning. Got some good old Chicago blues from the late 60s. This is a repress from Sundazed, 180 gram vinyl. Sounds fantastic. Again, can't say enough good stuff about this. And I was familiar a little bit with Otis Rush, but I didn't own anything of his on vinyl. That's already changed, and that's going to change some more. I got to track down more of this stuff by this guy. This was fantastic. Great guitarist, plays lefty, and he's got that very kind of pinched, like stinging sound with his guitar, very similar to Albert Collins. But man, I'll just show you the track list here. Damn near every single one of these is just killer. And the thing I love about albums like these, like Chicago blues albums from the 60s, like his voice, however they recorded it, I don't know, or where they recorded it, but it has that slight reverb to it that just makes it like a little echoey. And it just hits the sweet spot in my ear. I love that sound. Mixed with, there's nice horns in this too, great guitar playing, great singing. This was his first album, I believe, Morning in the Morning by Otis Rush. This is a killer album. Brad from H2 Vinyl, if you come across this album, buy it. Because I know I've sent you some blues albums in the past. I would highly recommend this one too. Or, yes, for anybody, not just Brad, but for anyone who's a blues lover like me. This is a great, great album. So there you go. And finally, we end with Shades of Deep Purple. This is the one that I found at that estate sale a week or two ago. Very nice condition record, played beautifully. Very nice cover. Of course, the big hit on here is Hush. But they cover, they do a lot of covers on this album. They cover I'm So Glad. They cover Help by the Beatles, and they cover Hey Joe. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was with these guys. They couldn't write enough of their own original material. They were doing lots of covers in here, and they were very unrecognizable until you started hearing lyrics, and you're like, oh, okay, that's Help. But it sounded nothing, not even close to the Beatles' version of Help. So they definitely made it their own. But I think this was, their first album or second album. And you just can't deny the power of that heavily amplified Hammond B3 that is a signature of Deep Purple sound. So it's all on full display in this album. So the only other album by them that I have is Machine Head, and this is certainly a lot different than that album. It's heavy, but it's more psych. It has more psych elements to it than just heavy, sludgy hard rock, which makes it a little more interesting to listen to. There's a nice mix. So Shades of Deep Purple closes out the record portion of this video. So for those of you who are only interested in records, the next things I'm going to talk about have nothing at all to do with records. So if you want to stop now, that's okay. No harm, no foul. So, okay. Assuming enough time has passed. So what I'm going to do now is move on to the next thing. Yesterday was Father's Day. And actually, Saturday, my friend George came over, and I gave him the Captain America comic, and I gave him the Empire Strikes Back album, and he was thrilled with both because the comic was a grail of his that he'd been looking for a long time. I was happy to give it to him, and he was thrilled with the Empire Strikes Back story record because he loves anything Star Wars. So I posted this on Facebook. He and my wife, I guess, had communicated because she was looking to pick up, I'll just hold a few of these up here. She was looking to find some of the original 12 Star Wars figures that came out in 1977. These were all things that I had owned when I was a kid back then. Of course, this is Luke, this is Vader. We have the Stormtrooper. Some of them have guns, some don't. We've got Obi-Wan. We've got Leia and Chewbacca. We have C-3PO and R2-D2. Kind of a beat-up R2, but still an R2. We have the Sand People, or the Tusken Raider, whichever you choose. We've got the original Han Solo. We've got the Jawa with the cloth robe instead of the plastic one. And these two were actually ones that George gave me. My wife bought all of those on eBay, but George helped her find them. But it wasn't the entire set. It was missing this guy. It was missing the Death Star Commander. He's got his gun right there. But on top of that, George also included Boba Fett, who didn't really come out until, well, actually his first appearance was in the infamous Star Wars Christmas special, in an animated segment of that show. But then, of course, he became more famous in Empire, and he made more of a full appearance there. But he included these also. So, needless to say, I was very touched because I had mentioned to my wife that I wanted to reacquire a set of the original 12 because I'm convinced that I have a carry case of figures that I had, but they're at my folks' house, and there's no way for me to get them right now. So I was going to ask George when he came over about trying to find a set, like just about roughly how much it would cost. And of course my wife beat me to it, being the wonderful person she is, and she got the set for me with his help. And they had me open that on Saturday because she wanted him to see the figures too, and she wanted him to see the look on my face when I opened them, which was very touched. Almost started crying, believe it or not, and I don't cry for anything. So yeah, I was pretty surprised, to say the least, and thrilled, and very touched that it was a very, very thoughtful gift from them. So I know my wife watches these. I'm not sure if George does, but if you do, thank you, brother. I love you. So, and the other reason why these popped into my head was because of that estate sale that I mentioned had a lot of pictures of Star Wars toys. And they had the base that came with, that you could get for the original 12 and stand them up and display them. But by the time I got to that sale, everything was gone. So I kind of have it in my head to try to track down one of those display bases, but we'll see. They're kind of pricey, and money's kind of tight right now, so I don't know. But just having these figures back takes me back, because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Star Wars. As much as you could possibly think anyone could be obsessed with Star Wars, I was, believe me. So I just wanted to show those to you real quick, and to thank my wife, because she is a wonderful person, to say the least. And of course my kids got me gifts yesterday for Father's Day. I got a new t-shirt, which you'll see in a future video, and I got a fly-killing gun. It's a I should have pulled it out and showed it to you. It shoots salt. It shoots a little puff of salt at flies to kill them instead of a fly swatter. Which is the perfect gift for me, because I can't stand flies, and I go crazy when I find one in the house. I will smash the entire china cabinet trying to kill a fly. So this is really for the best, to try to shoot a little puff of table salt at them to just kill them. But of course it's so damn cold out here. I'm still wearing long sleeve t-shirts in the middle of June, because yesterday the high was like 60. So it's just nuts. It's never, I don't remember it being this cold this late in the year. God, because it should be, we should be well into the upper 70s and 80s by now, if not approaching the 90s. So this has been a weird and wacky year for weather. What can I say? The other thing that I wanted to mention before I sign off here is that I'm going to go to my storage unit either today or tomorrow. I have an idea of things to pull that to show that would be comics. So I'm probably going to make a separate comics related video, and I don't know what I'll call it, but I'll think of something. I'm thinking I'm calling it Flip Zone, maybe, because you're flipping the pages instead of spinning the record. Maybe. We'll see. But that's what I intend to do, hopefully this week, like I said. So I kind of have an idea of what I want to get. I just have to go there and get it. So, all right, we're closing in on 30 minutes here. I think that's long enough. If you made it to the end without fast forwarding, you're the best. I love you. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you again shortly. So everybody, peace, be good to each other, and I'll see you then.